Well, church, I hope that you have prepared for today, that you have read into that 10th chapter of the book of John, and you have seen probably one of the most beautiful illustrations of God's salvation and security. When we see Jesus in that 10th chapter of John show us a picture of Him gathering us, who are referred to as sheep, into a sheep pen and protecting us from all outside forces. Now, I don't know if you really like being called a sheep. I really don't. I mean, in the scriptures, there's two different analogies that God uses for people. One of them is sheep, and the other is goats. Now, if I have my choice between a sheep and a goat, I'm going to choose a sheep. So God's not being derogatory when He refers to us as sheep, because a sheep is very defenseless. It's not the smartest animal out in the animal kingdom. It really is not very aggressive. It has no way of protecting itself. It really needs someone to watch over them. Now, a goat is very stubborn. They do whatever they want, and they really don't care to follow anything. But a sheep, on the other hand, needs a shepherd. And so in that 10th chapter, Jesus is recorded by John calling us sheep and telling what He really came to do. Now, I would love for you to turn with me into that 10th chapter, and let's read about 13 verses together to start our time here. Jesus says in that first verse, "Most assuredly I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the doorkeeper opens, and the sheep hear his voice. And he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he brings out his own sheep, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. Yet they will by no means follow a stranger, but will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of strangers." Jesus used this illustration, but they did not understand the things which He spoke to them. Then Jesus said to them again, "Most assuredly I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved, and will go in and out to find pasture. The thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. I have come that they may have life, and that they may have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd gives his life for the sheep, but a hireling, he who is not the shepherd, one who does not own the sheep, when he sees the wolf coming, he leaves the sheep and flees, and the wolf catches the sheep and scatters them. The hireling flees because he is a hireling and does not care about the sheep." Now, church, the first thing I want to ask you today, and probably the most important question you'll answer today, is, are you His sheep? Are you the one that He just spoke about? The one that He puts into a pen to protect and to encourage? You see, Jesus is the shepherd, and He is the one who cares for His sheep. In these first 13 verses, we see 5 different things that we see the shepherd doing for the sheep. One, He saves them. He takes care of them. He provides for them. He gives them life. He redeems them, and He gives them protection. There's 4 different individuals or groups that are listed in this first 13 verses. The first one is Jesus. He is the shepherd. He is the door. And then there are the sheep. That is us, the people who are following the shepherd. And then there is the religious leaders, those who were put in charge by God to teach and lead the congregation. But they had not done a good job. And this is not just in the days of Jesus. It had been historically a failure for those religious leaders of the Jews. They were selfish, hard-hearted, and uncompassionate. They were people who cared about their own well-being rather than those that they were guiding. So Jesus in these verses referred to them as thieves, robbers, strangers, and hirelings. And then the fourth that we would see in Jesus' teaching is Satan and his cohorts, the ones that follow after him. Now, they're referred to as robbers and as the wolf who comes in to kill and scatter the sheep. Now, when we see this illustration, again, this is a beautiful illustration of how Jesus views us. He tells us that he puts us in a place of protection, this sheepfold, this sheep pen. Now, before we can grasp really what that means, we've got to understand what a shepherd was like in the days of Jesus. Now, not many people here today understand what it's like to be a shepherd or to see a shepherd work. We don't see that very often. We do have farms. We do have big places that are wide open spaces, but most of the time they are fenced in, and so the animals are let loose, and then at a certain time they're kind of driven from one area into another to be moved or to be sold or whatever.